Hi everyone, Stack Lessons again. 20 questions for you today, all about CloudHSM key isolation, global accelerator routing, and RDS database scaling. Standard 10-second countdown on each one. Try not to peek at the answer before you commit. Good luck. Ready. Question 1. Track every qualifier. Fabricam Insurance is beginning their cloud migration journey. A transformation team is cataloging organizational capabilities to assess readiness. The company's organizational change management specialist is primarily concerned about workforce reskilling, cultural transformation, and how the existing IT department will adapt to a cloud operating model. Which AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, CAF, perspective addresses these workforce and culture concerns? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. The word people maps directly to workforce. The people perspective of the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework focuses on organizational change management, culture evolution, resource management, training and skills development, and leadership capabilities. It addresses how the workforce adapts to a cloud operating model, including identifying skill gaps and managing the human side of transformation. The business perspective focuses on financial management, risk management, and ensuring cloud investments align with business outcomes. The governance perspective focuses on audit, compliance, and portfolio management. The operations perspective focuses on IT service delivery, application management, and infrastructure operations at runtime. Ready? Careful on question 2. This one has a trap. A small software development team at a datum is preparing to launch their first AWS-hosted production application. They need the ability to submit technical support tickets and receive responses from AWS support engineers. They also want access to all AWS Trusted Advisor checks and proactive notifications via the AWS Personal Health Dashboard. The team wants the lowest cost plan that provides these capabilities. Which AWS support plan should the team select? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Check each tier against all three requirements. Business Support Plus is the minimum support plan that provides access to AWS support engineers via technical case submissions, the full suite of AWS Trusted Advisor checks, proactive personal health dashboard notifications, and AI-powered troubleshooting capabilities. It is the entry point for teams requiring actual technical support engineer engagement beyond billing and account questions. Basic support is included at no cost but does not provide access to AWS support engineers for technical cases. It covers only billing and account questions, provides a limited subset of trusted advisor checks, and offers community forum access only. Enterprise on-ramp support provides a pool of technical account managers and faster response SLAs, but at a significantly higher monthly cost that exceeds the team's requirement for the lowest cost qualifying plan. Enterprise support includes a dedicated technical account manager and 15-minute response times for critical cases, but is the most expensive tier and far exceeds the described requirements. Ready? Let's open question 3. Trey Research's compliance team needs to automatically identify and report any Amazon S3 buckets that contain personally identifiable information, PII, such as credit card numbers, passport numbers, or social security numbers, so that appropriate data handling controls can be applied. Which AWS service provides this capability? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Macie is the only service that reads S3 content. Amazon Macie is a fully managed data security service that uses machine learning to automatically discover, classify, and protect sensitive data stored in Amazon S3. It identifies personally identifiable information including credit card numbers, passport numbers, social security numbers, and other regulated data categories, then generates detailed findings that enable compliance teams to remediate access controls and apply appropriate data governance policies. Amazon Guard Duty is a threat detection service that monitors CloudTrail API activity, VPC flow logs, and DNS logs for malicious behavior and anomalies. It does not scan S3 object content to identify or classify PII. Amazon Inspector performs automated security assessments of EC2 instances and container images to find software vulnerabilities and unintended network exposure, not to discover sensitive data stored inside S3 objects. AWS Security Hub aggregates security findings from multiple AWS services and third-party partners into a unified dashboard for centralized security posture management. It does not independently scan for sensitive data in S3. Let us switch gears. Question 4. Compare scope and condition. Fabricum's security team has identified a block of malicious IP addresses actively scanning their application servers. They need a network control that can explicitly block all traffic from those IP addresses at the subnet level before packets reach any EC2 instance, and they require the deny rule to take priority over any existing allow rules. Which AWS network security control should they configure? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Security groups cannot deny, that is the entire trap. Network access control lists are stateless firewall controls that operate at the subnet level and support explicit DNI rules. Rules are evaluated in ascending numerical order, so placing a deny rule with a lower number than existing allow rules causes all traffic from the specified IP ranges to be dropped before any allow rule is reached. Because NACLs apply to all resources within a subnet, a single deny rule protects every EC2 instance in that subnet without requiring per-instance configuration. Security groups do not support explicit deny rules. They are stateful firewalls that only allow you to define which traffic is permitted. Any traffic not matching a configured allow rule is implicitly denied, but there is no mechanism to explicitly block a specific IP range while permitting other traffic, making security groups unsuitable for IP-based blocklisting. AWS Shield Advanced provides managed protection against distributed denial of service attacks and leverages AWS threat intelligence, but it does not expose a customer-managed IP blocklist. Shield automatically mitigates volumetric and infrastructure attacks rather than applying customer-defined deny rules against specific known addresses. AWS WAF with IP set rules operates at the application layer and integrates with application load balancers, CloudFront distributions, and API gateway stages. WAF inspects HTTP and HTTPS requests and cannot be applied directly at the subnet level, meaning any traffic that does not pass through a WAF integrated entry point is unaffected by WAF rules. Let's slow down here. The gap between NACLs and security groups trips up a lot of people. Imagine your office has two security layers. The lobby guard turns people away at the front door. The office lock only lets in approved visitors. It can't stop someone already inside. NACLs work like that lobby guard. They sit at the subnet edge and can explicitly deny traffic before any EC2 instance sees it. Rule numbers control priority. A deny at rule 50 beats an allow at rule 100. Security groups are the office lock. They track connections but have no deny rule. You can only list who's allowed, not block specific addresses. AWS WAF filters HTTP requests at a load balancer, not at the subnet level. Raw traffic bypasses it. The trap. Security groups feel like the right security tool, but they can't deny. That's why NACLs win. Keep your focus here. Question 5. The verb matters here. Prosware Pharmaceuticals is subject to regulatory requirements mandating that all cryptographic key material used to encrypt clinical trial data must reside on dedicated hardware that Prosware controls exclusively, with the cloud provider having zero visibility into key operations or key material. Which AWS service satisfies these requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. 3 words kill every wrong answer here. AWS CloudHSM provides single-tenant hardware security modules dedicated exclusively to each customer. The HSM data plane is end-to-end encrypted and not accessible to AWS personnel. AWS has zero operational visibility into cryptographic operations or key material. Customers manage their own HSM user credentials entirely outside of IAM, so AWS cannot retrieve or observe key operations under any circumstances. This directly satisfies both the dedicated hardware requirement and the zero provider visibility requirement. AWS Key Management Service with customer-managed keys uses AWS Managed, multi-tenant HSM infrastructure. While AWS cannot retrieve plaintext key material, the underlying hardware is shared infrastructure operated and maintained by AWS, failing both the dedicated hardware requirement and the zero provider visibility mandate. AWS Certificate Manager with private CA is designed for issuing private SSL/TLS certificates within an organizational PKI hierarchy. It is not a general-purpose cryptographic key management service and does not provide dedicated hardware isolation for arbitrary key material. AWS Secrets Manager stores and rotates application secrets such as database passwords and API keys. It is not a hardware security module and provides no cryptographic hardware isolation. This question has a sneaky trap. Let's break down why KMS isn't enough here. Imagine a pharmaceutical company with FDA regulators scrutinizing their data security. They need proof that nobody, not even AWS, can touch their encryption keys. AWS Key Management Service, or KMS, sounds right at first. You control the key policy, and AWS cannot see the plaintext, but the hardware underneath KMS is shared. AWS operates and maintains those machines. That's not zero visibility, that's we promise not to look. CloudHSM is different. You get a hardware security module, a physical device built purely for holding encryption keys, dedicated only to your account. Your credentials live completely outside of IAM. AWS has literally no way in. When a question says dedicated hardware and zero provider visibility, it's CloudHSM, every single time. 5 questions in. CAF People covers workforce transformation. NACLs are your only subnet-level deny control, and CloudHSM is the one service where AWS cannot see your key material. All right, for question 6, the qualifier matters. A software company runs Windows Server workloads on AWS. Their enterprise software license agreement with a third-party vendor requires deployment on physically dedicated servers to avoid per-socket and per-core licensing violations. The vendor's audit process requires documented evidence of the exact physical host IDs, socket counts, and core counts where the software runs. Which EC2 purchasing option satisfies both the licensing and auditability requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Per-socket licensing demands you see the physical host. Dedicated hosts provide an entire physical EC2 server dedicated exclusively to a single customer. They expose host-specific hardware details including host IDs, socket counts, and physical core counts, exactly the information required for per-socket and per-core license compliance audits. Dedicated hosts also support bring-your-own license arrangements, allowing customers to apply existing software licenses that are tied to physical hardware metrics. On-demand instances run on shared physical infrastructure managed by AWS. The customer has no visibility into or control over which physical host their instance occupies. and that host may run other customers' workloads simultaneously. This makes it impossible to satisfy per-socket or per-core licensing agreements that mandate dedicated hardware. Reserved instances represent a pricing commitment for discounted EC2 capacity over 1 or 3 years. They do not change the underlying physical infrastructure. Reserved instances run on the same shared multi-tenant hardware as on-demand instances. A reserved instance commitment provides no physical server dedication or hardware visibility. Spot instances run on unused EC2 capacity from the shared infrastructure pool at significantly reduced prices, but they can be interrupted by AWS with a 2-minute warning when that capacity is needed elsewhere. They provide no physical host visibility, no hardware dedication, and no stability guarantees, making them entirely unsuitable for workloads requiring licensing compliance on dedicated servers. Keep your focus here. Question 7. Ignore details that do not change the decision. Relic Cloud is designing an order notification system. When a customer places an order, 3 independent services, inventory, shipping, and billing, must each simultaneously receive their own complete copy of the order event for parallel processing. Which AWS messaging architecture best supports this fan-out notification pattern? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. SQS hands each message to exactly one consumer. Amazon's Simple Notification Service is a publish/subscribe messaging service that delivers an independent copy of each published message to every subscribed endpoint simultaneously. When an order event is published to an SNS topic, all 3 subscribers, the inventory service, shipping service, and billing service, each receive their own complete copy of the message at the same time, which is exactly the fan-out behavior required. A single Amazon SQS standard queue cannot deliver the same message to multiple independent consumers simultaneously. Each message is consumed once and deleted from the queue, meaning only one service would process each message while the others miss it. The correct SQS approach for this use case would be one dedicated queue per downstream service, each individually subscribed to an SNS topic. Amazon Event Bridge is well suited for event-driven architectures requiring content-based filtering, transformation, or routing to many different targets based on event patterns, but adds rule configuration complexity for a simple simultaneous delivery scenario where all services need every event without filtering. AWS Step Functions orchestrates sequential or parallel multi-step workflows using state machines and is designed for coordinated process automation, not for high-throughput event fan-out to independent decoupled services. OK. Question 8. Do not skim the condition. Blue Yonder Gaming operates a globally available multiplayer game with servers deployed in the US East 1 region. Players connecting from Europe and Asia are experiencing high latency caused by inefficient public internet routing between their locations and the AWS region. The solution must accelerate TCP traffic for the proprietary game protocol, provide static anycast IP addresses that game clients connect to, and route traffic over the AWS Global Network backbone instead of the public internet. Which AWS service meets all 3 requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. 3 specific keywords eliminate all 3 wrong services. AWS Global Accelerator improves the availability and performance of TCP and UDP applications by routing user traffic through the AWS Global Network backbone instead of the public internet. Global Accelerator provisions 2 static anycast IP addresses that serve as fixed entry points for client connections regardless of which AWS region or endpoint the traffic is directed to. Traffic enters the AWS network at the nearest edge location and travels over the optimized AWS backbone to the application endpoint, bypassing the unpredictable routing of the public internet. Amazon CloudFront is a content delivery network designed to cache and distribute HTTP and HTTPS content at edge locations. It does not provide static IP addresses, is not designed to accelerate arbitrary TCP protocols, and does not support non-HTTP workloads such as game server traffic running on proprietary protocols. Amazon Route 53 with latency-based routing uses DNS responses to direct users to the lowest latency region, but the actual data traffic still traverses the public internet after DNS resolution. Route 53 does not route application traffic through the AWS global backbone, and cannot guarantee improved TCP performance for non-DNS traffic. Application Load Balancer is a regional service that distributes HTTP and HTTPS traffic across targets within a single AWS region. It does not address cross-continental latency, provide global network acceleration, or support arbitrary TCP protocols for a distributed global user base. Okay, question 9. Start with what the user needs. Northwind Healthcare is deploying a global telemedicine platform serving patients across North America, Europe, and Asia. The platform handles both WebRTC video consultations over UDP and a mobile REST API over HTTPS. Enterprise hospital networks require static IP addresses to be whitelisted in firewall policies before granting access. Which service best accelerates global performance for both traffic types while providing the static IP addresses required? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. UDP disqualifies CloudFront before anything else. AWS Global Accelerator uses the AWS Global Network backbone to route traffic from end users through the nearest AWS edge location, and then across the AWS private network to the application endpoint, bypassing the variable latency of the public internet. It provides two static Anycast IP addresses that hospitals can whitelist in firewall policies. Critically, Global Accelerator supports both TCP and UDP traffic, making it suitable for WebRTC video streams over UDP and HTTPS REST API calls simultaneously. Amazon CloudFront is a content delivery network optimized for HTTP and HTTPS traffic that caches and delivers web content at edge locations. CloudFront does not support UDP-based protocols such as WebRTC, which disqualifies it for the video consultation use case. CloudFront also uses dynamic IPs at edge locations rather than persistent static addresses that can be pre-whitelisted by enterprise firewalls. Amazon Route 53 with latency-based routing directs users to the nearest endpoint at the DNS layer, but does not accelerate the actual data path between users and the origin, nor does it provide static IPs. Elastic load balancing distributes incoming traffic across targets within a single AWS region, and provides no global edge acceleration or static IP addresses suitable for international firewall whitelisting. Here we go. Question 10. Eliminate before you select. Relic Cloud's analytics platform uses Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL as its primary database. During business hours, the primary instance is overwhelmed because read-heavy reporting queries from the analytics team compete with write operations from the production application. The database team wants to direct reporting queries to separate database instances without impacting write availability. Which RDS feature addresses this requirement, and how does it differ from the other commonly recommended RDS availability feature? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. The multi-as standby is never readable. Full stop. RDS Read Replicas are asynchronously replicated copies of the primary database instance that can serve read traffic, allowing analytics teams to direct reporting queries to replica endpoints and relieve pressure on the primary write instance. Read replicas are specifically designed for read scaling and can be created in the same or different regions. RDS Multi as deployment creates a synchronous standby instance in a different availability zone that provides automatic failover during primary instance failures. Critically, the multi as standby instance is never accessible for read queries and serves exclusively as a failover target. Upsizing the RDS instance increases capacity but does not separate read traffic and creates a single point of failure. RDS automated backups create point-in-time snapshots that cannot be queried as live read endpoints for analytics workloads. Let's slow down here. Read replicas and multi-as sound similar, but the exam hides the difference. Imagine your database is a single barista making coffee and taking orders at the same time. At peak hours, everything slows down. Say you have 50 analysts all running heavy reports at 9 a.m. Your writes suffer. Read replicas are like hiring extra baristas just for taking orders. They're copies that can serve reads but can't accept writes. Multi-as is completely different. It's a backup barista standing in the kitchen, ready to jump in if the main one gets sick. That backup never serves customers directly, so when the question says direct reporting queries to separate instances, it's pointing at read replicas. The trap in option C flips the definitions. Multi as standby is unreachable for queries. Read replicas are. That's why A wins. Dedicated hosts expose socket and core counts for license audits. SNS delivers a simultaneous copy to every subscriber, and the multi as standby never accepts read traffic, only read replicas do that. Okay. Question 11. Make the distractors prove themselves. Lucerne Publishing is building a real-time gaming leaderboard that tracks player scores. A key requirement is that leaderboard data must survive node failures and application restarts without loss. The team cannot rebuild the leaderboard by re-querying a relational database after every incident. Which AWS service should they use? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Elasticache Redis can persist, but it is still just a cache. Amazon Memory DB for Redis is a durable in-memory database service that stores data persistently across multiple availability zones using a distributed transactional log. Unlike a cache, Memory DB serves as a primary database. Data survives node failures, application restarts, and availability zone outages without loss, directly satisfying the requirement that leaderboard data must persist without being rebuilt from a secondary store. Amazon Elasticache for Redis is a caching layer rather than a primary database. While it supports optional persistence via RDB snapshots and append-only file logging, it is designed for performance caching where data can be regenerated from a source of truth and does not provide the same durability guarantees as Memory DB. Amazon DynamoDB with DAX provides an in-memory cache that accelerates DynamoDB read performance, but DAX is a read-through cache in front of DynamoDB rather than a standalone durable in-memory store, adding architectural complexity without fulfilling the primary storage requirement. Amazon Elasticache for Mumcached is a pure in-memory cache with no persistence or replication, making it entirely unsuitable when data durability is a hard requirement. This one trips a lot of people. Both Redis options look identical until you check for durability. Imagine your leaderboard just hit 50,000 players, then a server node crashes. With Elasticache for Redis, you might lose the last few seconds of scores, because it's a cache, not a database. Memory DB for Redis is different. It writes every change to a distributed log across multiple availability zones before confirming success. If a node dies or the app restarts, every score is still there. The question's clue is cannot rebuild without requerying. That phrase means the data must live somewhere durable on its own. Elasticache sits in front of another database. Memory DB is the database. That's the exam trap. Same Redis API, completely different durability story. Next up, question 12. The wording is the clue. A Datum Corp stores financial audit logs in Amazon S3. The logs are accessed frequently for the first 30 days, occasionally between days 31 and 90, and virtually never after 90 days. Compliance regulations require that any audit log must be retrievable within 12 hours if requested for a regulatory review. After 90 days, storage costs must be minimized as much as possible. Which S3 storage class should a Datum Corp use for audit logs older than 90 days? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Both meet 12 hours, so cost is the tiebreaker. S3 Glacier Deep Archive is the lowest cost Amazon S3 storage class, and is designed for data that is rarely accessed and can tolerate retrieval times of up to 12 hours. The standard retrieval tier for Deep Archive returns objects within 12 hours, which satisfies the compliance requirement while delivering the absolute minimum storage cost for long-term archival after 90 days. S3 Standard IA is intended for infrequently accessed data that still requires millisecond retrieval. It costs significantly more per gigabyte than Glacier tiers, and is appropriate for data accessed roughly once a month, not for data virtually never accessed that can tolerate 12-hour retrieval times. S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval provides millisecond access to archived data and is suitable for use cases like medical images or media assets accessed quarterly. It is more expensive than both flexible retrieval and deep archive, making it unnecessarily costly when near-instant retrieval is not required. S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval also satisfies the 12-hour retrieval requirement, since its standard retrieval tier returns objects in 3 to 5 hours. However, Glacier Flexible Retrieval costs more per gigabyte than S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Because the requirement specifies minimizing costs as much as possible and both options meet the retrieval window, Deep Archive is the optimal choice. Next up, here's question 13. A Datum Corp's compliance team is preparing for a PCI DSS audit and must provide external auditors with official third-party attestation reports demonstrating that AWS infrastructure meets PCI DSS requirements. The team also needs to sign a business associate agreement with AWS for workloads that handle protected health information under HIPAA. Which AWS service gives the compliance team self-service access to these official compliance documents and agreements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Artifact is the on-demand compliance document portal. AWS Artifact is the self-service portal that provides on-demand access to AWS security and compliance documentation, including third-party audit reports, such as SOC 2 Type 2, PCI DSS attestations of compliance, ISO certifications, and FedRAMP authorizations. AWS Artifact also hosts agreements such as the Business Associate Addendum required for HIPAA workloads. AWS Security Hub aggregates security findings from multiple services and checks resources against managed security standards, but it does not provide downloadable official third-party audit reports or legally binding agreements. AWS Config tracks the configuration history of AWS resources and evaluates them against compliance rules, but it does not host AWS's own compliance attestations or legal agreements. AWS Trusted Advisor provides operational best practice recommendations across cost, security, performance, and fault tolerance categories, but it does not provide compliance documentation or contractual agreements. Next up, this is question 14. Conteso FinTech is redesigning a critical payment processing application. The solution's architect proposes distributing EC2 instances across multiple availability zones, configuring auto-scaling groups, and implementing circuit breakers between application tiers to allow graceful degradation when a component fails. These recommendations are primarily aligned with which pillar of the AWS well-architected framework? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Multi-as plus auto-scaling equals reliability every time. The reliability pillar focuses on designing workloads that perform their intended functions correctly and consistently, including the ability to recover from failures and dynamically acquire computing resources to meet demand. Multi-as distribution, auto-scaling for dynamic capacity, and circuit breakers for failure isolation are all canonical reliability design patterns addressing workload architecture and failure management. The security pillar focuses on protecting data, systems, and assets against threats. Operational excellence covers running and monitoring systems and improving processes over time. Performance efficiency addresses using computing resources efficiently to meet system requirements, such as right-sizing instance types and selecting appropriate architectures. Now for question 15. Litware Social processes hundreds of thousands of user-uploaded images per day on its platform. The content moderation team needs to automatically detect explicit or adult content and identify celebrity faces in uploaded images before they are published, without building or training custom machine learning models. Which AWS AI service meets these requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Rekognition is the pre-built vision service, no training needed. Amazon Rekognition is a fully managed computer vision service that analyzes images and videos to detect objects, scenes, faces, celebrities, and inappropriate or explicit content. Its content moderation feature identifies adult or unsafe content in images, and its celebrity recognition feature identifies well-known public figures. Both capabilities are pre-built and available immediately without any model training by the customer. Amazon SageMaker is a platform for building, training, and deploying custom machine learning models, which requires data preparation, model development, and training infrastructure. This adds significant time and operational overhead when a pre-built, purpose-built service is available for the exact use case. Amazon Comprehend is a natural language processing service that analyzes text to detect entities, sentiment, key phrases, and personally identifiable information in written content. It does not analyze image data for visual content moderation. Amazon Textract extracts text and structured data from document images such as forms, tables, and invoices. It is designed for document understanding, not visual content analysis or moderation. MemoryDB is the durable primary store, not a cache. Both Glacier tiers meet 12 hours, so Deep Archive wins on cost. Artifact is your self-service portal for audit reports and legal agreements. Let us keep moving. Question 16. Read the ask, not just the topic. Fabricom Financial is building a payment processing system subject to strict regulatory requirements. The compliance team specifies that cryptographic keys must be generated and stored in FIPS 140-2 Level 3 validated hardware, that the hardware must be physically dedicated solely to Fabricom's use, and that Fabricom must retain exclusive control with no AWS access to the key material. Which AWS service meets all of these requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. FIPS Level 3 and dedicated hardware narrow it immediately. AWS CloudHSM provides dedicated, single-tenant hardware security modules that are physically dedicated to a single customer. CloudHSM is validated to FIPS 140-2 Level 3, and the customer has exclusive administrative control over the HSM. AWS cannot access the keys or the key materials stored on the device. This directly satisfies all three regulatory requirements: dedicated hardware, FIPS Level 3 validation, and exclusive customer control. AWS KMS with AWS Managed Keys operates on shared multi-tenant HSM infrastructure where AWS retains administrative access, which violates the exclusive control requirement. AWS KMS with customer-managed keys allows customers to control key policies and rotation, but the underlying HSM infrastructure is shared and managed by AWS, making it insufficient for the dedicated hardware and Level 3 requirements. AWS Secrets Manager is designed for storing and rotating application credentials, such as database passwords and API keys, not for FIPS 140-2 Level 3 validated hardware key generation and storage. Let us keep moving. Question 17. Let the constraints drive the choice. Adatum e-commerce runs a 3-tier web application using an application load balancer, an auto-scaling group of EC2 web servers, and an Amazon RDS MySQL instance. During a promotional sale, the auto-scaling group scales from 3 to 25 EC2 instances, but users continue to experience slow page loads and timeouts. A DevOps engineer observes that average CPU utilization across all 25 instances is 15%, and average memory utilization is 20%. Which root cause best explains the continued performance degradation? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Low EC2 metrics while users suffer means look downstream. When an auto-scaling group successfully adds instances yet CPU and memory utilization remain very low across all instances while users still experience slow performance, the bottleneck is typically in a tier that cannot scale horizontally with the web servers. Amazon RDS is a single writer instance that does not scale linearly alongside EC2. As 25 web servers simultaneously send queries, the RDS instance can become overwhelmed with concurrent connections, slow queries, or I/O saturation, while EC2 metrics appear healthy because the web servers spend most of their time waiting on database responses rather than consuming local CPU or memory. The auto-scaling group successfully reached 25 instances, confirming the maximum count was not a limiting factor. Application load balancers distribute traffic evenly using a round-robin algorithm by default, and are not a cause of bottlenecks under normal conditions. Both 15% CPU and 20% memory utilization across 25 instances confirm the EC2 tier is not resource-constrained, ruling out instance sizing. Let's slow down here. This question has a sneaky clue hiding in the performance numbers. Picture a restaurant where you hire 22 extra cashiers, but there's still only one kitchen. The cashiers are standing around idle. That's exactly what's happening here. You scaled to 25 EC2 web servers, but there's still one RDS MySQL instance handling all the queries. Each of those 25 servers can open dozens of database connections. Suddenly, the database is juggling thousands of simultaneous requests. The web servers sit idle, waiting for a database response, so CPU stays at 15% and memory at 20%. The EC2 tier looks fine because it's just waiting. The question gives you the clue. Low CPU, low memory, but still slow. That means the work is stuck somewhere else. In a 3-tier app, that's almost always the database. Let us keep moving. Question 18. Do the logic before the recall. Tray Research recently experienced a 6-hour production outage. Their existing developer support plan provided an initial response of over 8 hours, resulting in significant revenue loss. The company needs a support plan with 24/7 phone and chat access to cloud support engineers, a guaranteed human response in under 30 minutes when production systems are completely down, and AI-powered troubleshooting assistance. A dedicated technical account manager is not required. Which AWS support plan meets all requirements at the lowest cost? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Enterprise meets it but overshoots. Cost rules it out. Business Support Plus is the minimum plan that satisfies all stated requirements. It provides 24/7 phone, web, and chat access to cloud support engineers, a guaranteed human engagement time of less than 30 minutes for business-critical system down cases, access to more than 500 AWS Trusted Advisor checks, and real-time AI-powered contextual assistance. A dedicated technical account manager is not included in Business Support Plus, which aligns with the stated requirement to exclude that capability. Developer Support provides business hours email access to Cloud Associate Support engineers, and a response time of up to 12 business hours for general guidance. It does not offer 24/7 phone access or a 30-minute critical issue response (SLA). Enterprise Support includes all Business Support Plus capabilities and adds a designated technical account manager, up to 15-minute response times for production-critical cases, and proactive guidance services. It meets the requirements but significantly exceeds them and carries a substantially higher monthly minimum cost. Basic support covers only account and billing questions and provides no technical support (SLA) or access to cloud support engineers. Ready. Question 19. Underline the key phrase mentally. Northwind Traders CIO is planning a migration to AWS. A key workstream involves establishing mechanisms for tracking cloud investments against business outcomes, defining approval processes for new cloud resource provisioning, managing IT portfolio risk across business units, and ensuring audit and compliance controls are in place throughout the migration. According to the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, which perspective should be the primary focus for these organizational capabilities? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Audit, compliance, portfolio, those are governance keywords. The AWS CAF governance perspective focuses on orchestrating cloud initiatives to maximize organizational benefits while minimizing transformation-related risks. It owns capabilities including audit and compliance management, risk management, portfolio management, financial management, and organizational change governance. The tracking of cloud investments against outcomes, approval workflows for resource provisioning, and cross-business unit risk management all fall squarely within the governance perspective. The business perspective focuses on ensuring cloud investments accelerate digital business outcomes and create business value. It is led by roles like CFO and CEO, and is concerned with strategy alignment, not compliance controls. The operations perspective manages how business and IT services are delivered and supported day to day, including service management and infrastructure operations. The platform perspective covers technical architecture patterns, application modernization, data architecture, and infrastructure engineering decisions. Ready. Question 20. The clue is not in the service name. Fabricam Corp is reviewing its AWS workloads against the AWS well-architected framework. The engineering team wants to reduce the environmental footprint of their cloud applications by selecting more energy-efficient compute resources, minimizing wasted capacity, and choosing AWS regions powered by renewable energy sources. Which well-architected framework pillar directly addresses these goals? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Environmental footprint and renewable energy land in sustainability. The sustainability pillar, added in December 2021 as the sixth and most recent pillar, specifically addresses minimizing the environmental impact of cloud workloads. Its design principles include selecting efficient hardware, eliminating idle resources, choosing AWS regions with higher renewable energy availability, and building software that uses the least amount of compute, storage, and network required. The cost optimization pillar targets financial cost reduction, which may overlap with sustainability efforts, but is not the primary framework for environmental impact. Performance efficiency focuses on using resources optimally relative to workload demands, which can contribute to sustainability but is scoped to performance goals. Operational excellence focuses on running and monitoring systems effectively through automation and continuous improvement, not on energy or environmental considerations. 3 takeaways from this session. First, CloudHSM is the only answer when zero AWS visibility into key material is a hard requirement. Second, the multi-year standby never accepts read traffic, only read replicas scale out read capacity. Third, Global Accelerator provides static anycast IPs and accelerates both TCP and UDP over the AWS backbone. Key isolation, global routing, and the database bottleneck. You now have a precise mental model for each. Those 3 patterns repeat throughout this exam. Carry them forward and you will recognize them on site. Quick ask before the next batch. If this helped your prep, subscribing is the simplest way to keep it going and spread it. Tell me your score in the comments and what you'd want explained deeper. If there's an exam you want next, suggest it below. And if the pace or look could improve, send me your honest take.